Welcome to the Resilience Catalyst Show. I am your host, Joyce Odidison, Resilience Catalyst, conflict analyst, and master certified coach, and founder of Interpersonal Wellness Services, Inc. For almost 3 decades, I have helped people, leaders, and organizations strengthen resilience at work and in life, as well as in the relationships when change becomes overwhelming. Today, we're talking about one of those life transitions that can quietly shake a person's identity. That's called the empty nest. Suddenly, the children are gone, they've left home, the house may become quieter, the routines have changed, and many parents begin to ask, who am I now? And what comes next for me? This is a resilience conversation because transition does not only change our schedule, they affect our purpose, our confidence, our relationships, our emotions, our health, our sense of meaning. My guest today is Kelly Salmons, founder of the Nest Evolution. Kelly helps empty nesters, especially women, rediscover their strength, reconnect with purpose, and design the next chapter of their lives with clarity and hope. Let's get into the conversation. I'm going to invite Kelly. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Joyce. I'm really excited to be here.
I am so glad to have you here. So for our listeners, Kelly, tell us a little bit about the Empty Nest Show, where you're going to tell us a little bit more about where did it all start and why the transitions and how you even noticed that this was something we needed to talk about.
Sure. So I will say for me, I was in the Navy, I was an educator, entrepreneur, mover and shaker, and doing all the things just like most moms are out in the world.
Mhm.
And my girls were headed off to schools and doing great things and conquering the world in their own ways. And I got lost. I was still teaching and I thought, great, I'll have my students and I'll have all of this. And I just got lost. I lost myself. And, it's that big void that kind of opens up when all of the other needs and requirements for everyone else disappear and you don't really know how to fill it. And you're not really sure how to fill it. And you might feel guilty. You might feel lost. You might feel stuck. I kind of had a lot of those feelings. And many, many people struggle through this time period and quietly.
Mhm. Yes.
25 to 30% of women struggle with their identity during this time period. And, 67% of couples go through relationship changes during the empty nesting stage.
Mhm.
So, there's a lot going on. And then depending, especially if people have waited. So now they also have a lot of hormones going on maybe, or not going on, or whatever, as those have shifted. And also as their parents are aging. So now they may be taking care of that. So you've kind of got all of those things happening.
Yes.
And a lot of,
situation.
that whole sandwich. And
Yes.
I think that, women, we tend to be silent about a lot of things and we just take it and roll with it and go with it and keep working on it.
Mhm.
And I think that you forget to come back and have that conversation and you don't necessarily have it with your girlfriends because
Mhm.
they're in different stages. Maybe their kids left and they're like having a party every night and it's a celebration. Maybe they don't have kids. And so, there's a group of women that really struggle with this and others are just like, yeah, see you later. Don't let the door hit you. Goodbye. And then there's those of us who are like, I thought I was just gonna be like, okay, great. Like, love you. See you later. And in many ways, I still have some of those like, okay, great. You're doing awesome. I'll see you when you need me, but I struggled because I wasn't needed
Mhm.
and I couldn't fill it with anything else. And I think that's where some of us really get into a hard time and need a place to speak, need a place to go.
Kelly, this is very interesting because I was chuckling when you were saying that because there are 2 different type of mothers, right? And some fathers struggle with that too. It's not just a female thing. But I know for myself, when our kids are 8.5 years apart. So when my daughter left home at 23, I was like, yes, one more left. And my son, who was 16, he was like, Mom, I'm only 16, pushing you out of the door. I was just celebrating.
Right.
It was so funny. I was like, oh my gosh, this child is going to think I want him out of the house. I was just celebrating. I've done my job. And there's
Right.
such a sense of elation when you know you've equipped them with the tools they need to be successful in life. You are. But then not every child is the same, right? Children are very different and their needs are different. And I think it was someone the other day was saying something to me about a child that was in their 50s. And I was like, hell, once a parent, always a parent, right? These are always going to be your children.
Right.
So, Kelly, tell us a little bit about, as you share your story, many people think that the emptiness is just about the children moving out, but it can touch on other things, like the deeper things. What's happening emotionally for women in this transition? And what kind of resilience does it take for you to see that and say, hey, I'm not the only one who have this issue. And I think I can help others to do it. So kudos on you, because a lot of times women have gifts and they start to think of themselves as not having a gift, not being able to do anything. I have nothing to offer. I hear that. And I hear people say to me, I don't have friends. I have nothing to offer. And I was like, what? So big kudos on you for taking that up. But let's talk a little bit about the emotional part of this for the women that you're working with.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of us, we just get kind of lost, or we kind of escape, or we just kind of pull into ourselves instead of pushing out, and I'll talk my experience. For me, I kind of turned in and I was on stage at school with all the kids and the educators. And then I came home and literally just like fell into the chair at home and like escaped into my books. And my husband kept looking and saying, "Oh, what's going on? Are you okay?" And a lot of husbands may not even, or significant others may not even notice.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, "Oh, okay, you seem fine. You're just quiet. You're just tired."
Mm-hmm.
And my mind looked at me and he's like, "You okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm fine." Which, I'm fine is one of the you're so not fine when it's, yeah, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as I'd always been able to make lists and
Mm-hmm.
and put lists together and line things up and knock them down and get it done. And I couldn't list my way out of this. And so, my husband's like, "Well, what do you need?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just don't know what I need," because I really had no idea. And the buffering, I like to call it, like that circle on the computer was just spinning. And we get into that analysis paralysis. And so many women will do this. And it's like, okay, great. I want to go do something, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know really what I want to do. Or there's that fear of not wanting to do because maybe you felt like, well, I don't really have, what gifts do I have? I don't have those
Mm-hmm.
skills. And so you read everything and you study everything. And there's, a great poem about do the thing, right? You read about it and you talk about it and you study about it and you take classes about it and you watch TV about it, but you never actually do it. And so one of the things I learned in kind of my journey was just do it. And it doesn't have to be the end all be all thing that you're going to do. And so I started trying different things. And I came around to taking a $17 masterclass in real estate investing. And I had done some real estate and investing in the past. And that lit a spark for me, which allowed me to find a little bit more of myself and where I wanted to take a little bit of action every day. Because I think when we feel like we don't have anything to offer, we just stop taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started taking action. I started wanting to lead things again. And that to me was like, oh, okay, I'm feeling a little more like
Mm-hmm.
myself again. And so I think that, the part of it is just being able to learn to take some little steps. And many of us are perfectionists. I don't know anybody like that who, doesn't want to put anything out until we have it 100% perfect. And I had a friend say, done is better than none. And it's so true,
Mm-hmm.
because you could sit and wait for 6 months on a website or pamphlet or just an outfit to leave the house in, whatever it is, right? You could just spend all this time on it. Just go do it, because you're the only one that's even going to notice that it wasn't perfect in your mind. Everybody else
This
is going to be like,
is,
"Wow, you look fabulous," or "Wow,
yeah.
this is great," or "Oh, holy cow, this is good." And you can always go back and revise it. You can always go back and change. But I think we get in our heads so much. And in that empty nesting time, that void of not having things just exemplifies it. And it just amplifies it even more. And
Mhm.
then we can't, or we're afraid, or whatever, all the no, 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 no in our head starts that prevents us from taking that little action that will actually be the trigger that will bring you back to who you really are.
Kelly, this is such an important conversation that we're having now because resilience in my work is often, I remind people that major transitions affect us more than in one area, right? When something changes in the family system, it can affect us emotionally, our emotional resilience, or social, or connection, or spiritual meaning, identity, health, relationships, and even work. This is why I say resilience is not just about bouncing back in today's age, because we have so many more things right now. Sometimes resilience is about rebuilding who you are when the role you have lived have changed, or the way you felt you were belonged has changed. The rug has been pulled out from under you, and you need a new way and a new place to reconfigure what you're about, who you are, reconnect with your resilience anchors, your faith, your hope, your passion. And this is exactly what you have done and you're building with your clients. So the question I have for you is that who am I? Why is identity such a major part of the emptiness transition for your clients? What are they telling you around that?
Well, one of the things is we've placed value on being needed. And as a
Mm-hmm.
mom, we're needed. And we've
Yeah.
placed our value on being needed, our value on serving others and making sure that, the kids are taken care of, the spouse or the significant other is taken care of, our parents are taken care of, the church group is taken care of, the school mom responsibilities are filled,
Mm-hmm.
the work responsibilities are filled. And so we start to feel like our value is in that sense of being needed,
Given, yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
not in our value is in just the fact that we are who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of work is helping others remember all of their strengths and remember all of the power that they have within themselves. And so I love to do just a little exercise, and your listeners could do this. But
Mm-hmm.
really thinking about a time when you felt really powerful and or resilient or
Mm-hmm.
had a ton of courage. Think about one of those times. And then what gifts and what things did you use that you have inside you to get through that, to come to the
Mm,
outcome that you needed to come to. And when you stop and look at those things, all of a sudden it's like, I did that before. Well, that's still you.
it's
Now you
still
have more
you.
wisdom. Now you have
Mhm,
more life experience. Why can't you still use those things?
mhm.
And, I was in the Navy and well, I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. So when I was a teenager, when I was 17, I was like, I'm going. And I had studied everything. And this is, old school, had the course catalog when I was younger. And I remember calling a meeting with the math chairman as a freshman. And my mom comes in and sits down and the math chair looks at my mom and my mom's like, I don't know. And the math chair's okay, why are we here? And I was like, well, here, I need to be in this class to take this class to take this class so that I'm ready when I go to the Naval Academy as a freshman or, as a plebe so that I have already seen calculus and I will be ready to go because I need a class that I've already seen before I get, when I get there. And, 17 or, actually I was ninth grade. So 13, 14-year-old me did that. I
Mhm.
felt confident and comfortable enough to call that meeting along with all the other things I did to get into the academy. But if I could do that then,
You can do it
I
now.
can't do that now? Like, come
Yeah,
on. I am way wiser, way smarter. Like, why
exactly.
can't you do that now? And so I
Mm,
think having that little exercise is when is a time that you felt powerful or resilient or
mhm,
whatever words you want to use. I think that's
mhm.
really important to help women realize that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And the piece we talked about earlier is that we're so unfamiliar with our emotions and we're so uneducated about our emotions that we lump everything into emotional, right? But there are nine dimensions, and you can be socially, emotionally, spiritually, you can be intellectually, environmentally, financially, interpersonal. There are nine dimensions. And we have to start broadening our worldview and start recognizing. When I teach the with resilience intelligence, I'm really focusing on that whole currency of resilience, recognizing that we are humans, we are multidimensional. And when a major part of your life, like your child rearing, is gone, you have to be able to fill that void or you're going to feel empty and naked. And so that brings me back to my book coming out in August. My new book this is book number 8. It's called The Resilience Anchors. And in there, I talk about how we fill back up the cup, the anchors that keep us as individuals, as humans, as parents. And this is exactly what I'm hearing you saying, remembering where you were anchored, remembering what holds you together. That is so important. And I really wanted the listeners to do the connection and see that if you remember where you're anchored, when you go back to get your strength, that helps you move forward.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, and it empowers you again.
Yes.
I mean, to continue kind of with the other question is,
Yeah.
you're CEO of a small nation, right? And you're running it
Mhm.
on juice boxes and a Google Calendar and, being in 27 places at once.
Mhm.
There's a lot of skills that you have that
Mhm.
you're so ingrained in mommy mode that
Mhm.
you don't even realize the skills that you have.
Yes,
And so
very
taking
true.
that step back and really thinking about what was it when you had the kids at home and you were running around crazy? What were some of those skills that you really liked? Was it
Mhm.
planning the birthday parties? Okay, well maybe you
Mhm.
should look into it being an event coordinator or
Mhm.
just doing it for some friends. So I think again, it's remembering, like you said, the anchors, but remembering the things that help fill you with peace
Yes.
or alignment or
Mhm.
joy or that bring you happiness, not just everybody else's happiness, right? Like we love to serve, we love to see everyone else happy, but are
Mhm.
we really happy or did we just love, and I think that's important to remember as you start intentionally designing this new life.
Yes, that is so important because we get depleted. As a mom, you get depleted. Sometimes you need that nap, but you can't give yourself it because you still have all these responsibilities. And it's just like how you get physically tired and you need a nap. We do so in all the 9 dimensions. And it's really important as you're working with your women to remind them that you're maybe depleted in this area, but there is still more with you. I was doing the assessment. I had a client who went through the assessment a couple of days ago, and then she did her spiritual, which is where the anchors are held in the 9 dimensions and the resilience anchors. And she said to me, "My number is in the 80s. That's not right. I don't feel like I should be in the 80s. I feel like I should be way down in the 40s." And I had to remind her, I said, this is why they're called the resilience anchors, because they are what anchored you. And I said, had you not had faith, hope, passion, self esteem, if you don't have purpose and vision, those core resilience anchors that hold you together when the storms come, then this storm you're going through would have crashed because she's going through a time of grief and mourning and losses. And she's like, I should be a puddle on the floor. That's how I feel. But then we were able to go back in and look at these anchors are really helping me to maybe not thrive because I'm showing up at work. I'm still getting work done. I'm still getting positive feedback at work where I feel like I should be a puddle on the floor. But why am I not there? And I think too often we don't celebrate what's keeping us going. And that's part of resilience. And I
Yeah.
love the connection when you're reminding people of what made you strong. When was the last time you felt strong? Because we forget that. And when we forget, we lose our strength, our ability to move ourselves forward. So, for women in the emptiness who may have revealed that they need relationship, they have a new relationship, so it may be they have different issues going on in their life and they need that step. What do you, Kelly, provide them, right? Your message for that emptiness. Now that it's not at an end, it's a new beginning. How do you frame that message for your clients?
Yes, I kind of have, my process, but I call it the nest method,
Mm,
and navigating and knowing where you are to start. And, we have to have awareness of where we're at because we can't move forward without being able to understand where we're at.
true.
So we kind of start there. Next embrace new things and embrace the change. It's
Mhm.
changed.
Yeah.
It's changed, you know. So what are the changes that you want and what changes do you want to make?
Mhm.
And that's part of going out and trying new things or trying
Mhm.
old things maybe that were of value to you before and you
Mhm.
kind of let go or have been dormant for a number of years while you've gone through this last stage of your life. The big part, S is strength and remembering the strength and then transform. And so the big thing here is designing with intentionality. What do you want in your life?
Mhm.
How do you want your life to be?
Mhm.
How do you want to feel? What are your, I don't like to use the G word, what are your goals? But, what is your plan?
Mhm. Yeah.
What is it that you want to do? And for some people, again, I think when we start asking some of these questions, they can be, especially when you've been stuck and lost, it can feel
Mhm.
so monumental and monstrous and overwhelming when we ask some of these questions. And again, it's no, just do something, make one little decision. And if you're struggling, fine. What's for dinner, right? What are you going to do? How can you make your relationship a little better? Okay, what can you do? Make a little decision, set a timer for 5 minutes and go with it and do it. And if it doesn't work, okay, then change it and you make another little decision. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be the big decisions right at first.
Mm.
So, and part of that comes from dreaming. And I know one of the things, and I know this is a long-winded way to get to your answer here about relationships, but one of the activities that I found really, really hard as I was coming, struggling in my empty nesting stage was what are your dreams? What do you want? And I couldn't have told you. I sat and stared at a blank piece of paper for 10 minutes twice, and I really had nothing to write down on there. And so I really worked on that and thought about it. And my husband was the same way. So we both worked on it and we finally were able to get the juices flowing and come up with
Mhm.
some dreams and what we wanted and not just,
Mhm.
okay, how do we, cover college and how do we pay the bills and, all of those types of things. Like what do we want? And that was a huge opportunity and growth moment for our relationship. We
Mm.
both put down our dreams. And then after we went through and put everything down again individually, then we shared those dreams and we
Mhm.
shared
Very
what we had on
important.
there.
Yeah.
And there were things that I thought he wanted and was dreaming about that he didn't have on his list. He didn't care about that anymore.
Mhm.
And he wasn't interested in that anymore. And there were new things, and I was like, "Oh, wow." And same thing on my list. And then we
Mhm.
realized there were a bunch of things that we both wanted.
Mhm.
And so that's now brought us together in a new way that we now have, we can join forces again, just like you would tag
Mhm.
team with your kids and getting them everywhere, but we've joined forces on some of these dreams that we want to go
Yeah.
after together. And so
Absolutely.
I think that is one exercise that's really powerful for couples to go through. And again, it could also be you could do it in the corporate or work environment
Mhm.
for what your division or what your team is working towards and what those plans and goals are, where you also get that buy-in, which is so important from your teammates or your workmates.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And the other is we intentionally have pool time. We don't always get in the pool, but we have pool time, and that's where we take 20 or 30 minutes, at the end of the day and walk away. And it's hard with so many people working at home and always being reached on their
Mhm.
phones and always being available, where we kind of put everything away and we just go sit by the pool or sit the kitchen counter, whatever it is, and just focus on each other
That
and
is
have that
such
time to
brilliant.
connect. Yeah.
That is so important because many people don't know how to do that, and that is key. So, as an empty nester, if you're coming to empty nesting, folks, or you are at the process of empty nesting, you definitely want to hear what Kelly has to say on this show. Kelly, where can people get a hold of you?
Sure. So the nestevolution.com
Mm-hmm.
is you can go in there. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always got a master class or something coming up. You can also
Mm-hmm.
jump in there and hear some more. Those are free to join.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on LinkedIn, Kelly H. Salmons, and Facebook and Instagram. So your Nest Evolution and Empty Nest Evo on Instagram. So yeah.
Kelly, this has been such a meaningful conversation because it reminds us that resilience is not only needed in crisis. We need to be able to move back. It's needed in those quiet transitions, in that identity shift from family changes, relationship changes when the kids leave. So, for those of you listening, emptiness does not have to mean an empty life. It may be an invitation to rebuild your resilience, reconnect with your purpose, your community, strengthen your relationships, and start paying attention to your thoughts, yourself, your care, and what you need for yourself. This is Joyce Odidison here with you at the Resilience Catalyst. You can visit us at interpersonalwellness.com. We'll have the show notes here for you and the show notes on how you can connect with Kelly. Kelly, thank you for joining me today on the Resilience Catalyst podcast, where our listeners learn more about resilience and how it can be part of their life. Thank you for joining the show and see you on the next episode.